In the late 2000s, almost everyone between the ages of 8 to 12 knew the words that followed. After all, this was the opening to one of the most successful kids shows of the era, iCarly. iCarly ran for 7 seasons from September 2007 to November 2012 on the American TV channel Nickelodeon. Although even today, reruns are still airing on Nickelodeon's sister channel, Teen Nick. Many of us who watched the show when it aired are now adults, but even now, I'm a bit taken aback by just how popular the show became, especially at its peak. Usually, big multinational TV networks tend to be slightly behind the times, but iCarly was surprisingly adept at mirroring the thoughts, ideas, and creativity of its preteen audience. In this video, I'll go over why and how Carly Shay became the queen of the kids sitcom. It's first important to get a bit of context surrounding the kids' TV landscape. In the US, there are 3 major cable networks that create content aimed for children: Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and Cartoon Network. Generally, Cartoon Network focuses on animation, while the other 2 focus on a mix of animation and live-action comedy. For years, Nickelodeon was the most popular TV network aimed at kids. Time after time, hits like Rugrats, SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, All That, and Drake and Josh won in the ratings. However, in 2003, Disney aired a show about a teenager who had psychic powers. The show, named That's So Raven, propelled the network to a new level of success, prompting Disney's execs to make it the first show on the network to reach 100 episodes. Through hits like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Kim Possible, Hannah Montana, The Cheetah Girls, and High School Musical, Disney was able to continue their upward trajectory throughout the early to mid 2000s. And by 2007, they were a formidable competitor to Nickelodeon. High School Musical 2 became the highest rated cable movie of all time, and Hannah Montana became Disney Channel's highest rated show to date and a tween phenomenon. The battle between these 2 networks was intense, and stakes were high. Who could blame them? In 2007, kids controlled $39 billion in purchasing power. Depending on the product, anywhere from 70 to 90% of American families had kids make buying decisions. Combine that with their perceived impressionability, and it's easy to see why these networks were battling it out for the attention of 12-year-olds. iCarly helped Nickelodeon win the battle, at least when it came to the Nielsen ratings. Throughout much of its run, iCarly had more viewers per episode, at least in the US, than any other live-action kids show on the market. At its season 4 peak, iCarly was averaging 6 million views per episode. In comparison, most of its contemporaries were averaging between 3 to 5 million views per episode. Its special episodes were also huge hits. Almost 11.2 million people tuned in to see iCarly's most watched episode, I Saved Your Life. Let me repeat that again. 11.2 million. For reference, more people saw that episode of iCarly than the series finale of Breaking Bad. At one point, iCarly was more popular than SpongeBob. That's right, SpongeBob. Due to the show's massive pull in the ratings, iCarly star Miranda Cosgrove was earning $180,000 per episode. This made her the highest paid child actress on TV. To put things into perspective, she was making about 7 times more per episode than Selena Gomez and about 12 times more per episode than Miley Cyrus. Not bad for a teenager. Cruddy, SETI, Random Dancing, and Spaghetti Tacos. These words may not have meant much to the typical adult, but almost every kid could tell you they came from iCarly. In the same way that adults gathered around the water cooler to discuss the Game of Thrones finale,
best season ever!
Kids gathered around in cafeteria tables to also talk about the episode where Fred met Carly Shay. Now, let's look into exactly why iCarly turned into the most popular kids sitcom on TV. We'll be looking at three main factors: the show's concept, its humor, and the use of its romantic relationships. Let's start with the concept. iCarly was a sitcom that followed Carly Shay, a teenager who hosted her own web show alongside her best friend, Sam Puckett. Freddie Benson, a friend of Carly and Sam, filmed each episode and handled the technical production side of things. Unfortunately, you can't really talk about a successful, live-action, Nickelodeon sitcom without also talking about Dan Schneider. While the allegations against him raised a ton of suspicion, he knew exactly how to create shows that kids wanted to watch. One day, he was watching YouTube and he thought to himself, why not let the kids who watch the show at home also help make it? It was this brilliant insight that led to the creation of iCarly. Back in 2007, YouTube was just beginning to get popular, and kids were a huge audience on the site. Many of the site's most prolific early creators made content directed towards younger audiences, including Smosh, Ryan Higa, and Fred. During the mid-2000s, escapist TV was also very popular amongst kids. Most shows back then sold themselves to kids by presenting them with a fantasy. Kids across America watched people around the same age as them become international pop stars, magicians, psychics, and live in fantasy boarding schools and cruise ships that catered to their every whim. iCarly was just that, another fantasy. But unlike most of the other kids shows on TV, it was a more realistic one. Getting famous for making videos on the internet seemed just a bit more achievable than becoming an international pop superstar or being born into a family of wizards. Back in 2007, it seemed like all you needed was a camera, some on-screen charisma, and a little bit of luck to make it to the front page of YouTube. This blend of fantasy and realism brought young viewers to the show. Tons of kids and teens wanted to become famous on YouTube, and iCarly provided them with an avenue to explore what that would be like. Back then, Carly would ask fans to send in content that showcased their talent and creativity, and those clips would then get featured on the show and the show's website, www.icarly.com. This made iCarly one of the first scripted TV series ever to include content created by viewers. Through this process, the show became more of an interactive experience. If you were creative enough, you too could be featured in the show. Thus, Nickelodeon was able to engage young audiences and appeal to them in a way that was truly different than other kids shows.
Well, it seems our sign is so bright and dazzling, it distracted one of the drivers below.
Turn it off!
Oh, okay, I will now turn off the sign.
That's not off! Dude!
Oh man, I am pressing the button. Literally all of them trying to turn off the sign.
You're gonna overload the circuits! Pee on Carl?
iCarly's brilliance was found not just in the concept, but the humor as well. As a kids sitcom, its primary goal was to make kids laugh. And focusing on randomness and zaniness, iCarly nailed the types of comedy that kids are gravitating towards. About a year after iCarly aired, Fred became the most subscribed creator on YouTube. Fred was beloved among kids for his hyperactivity and his randomness. 6 months after that, Fred met the cast of iCarly, and 2 months after that, he was the first YouTuber to reach 1 million subscribers. iCarly's comedy mirrored that same weird, hyperactive energy. At times, the web show almost felt like something you'd see on YouTube.
Ready?
Yes.
I thought we talked about this. We can be buds, but you gotta get over this crush thing.
I am over it. Seriously. I'm in love with you. You just want to be friends, and I'm totally cool living with that constant pain.
Lastly, the show's ongoing love triangle was a huge contributor to its success. Initially, Freddie had a crush on Carly, and so it was assumed that they'd eventually end up together. However, that all changed with season 2, episode 8's I Kiss. In the episode, Freddie admits to Carly in a private conversation that he has never kissed a girl before. Sam overhears this and decides to share Freddie's secret on the web show. Freddie is then shamed for having not kissed anyone before. After feeling guilty about this, Sam later reveals on the web show that she hadn't kissed anyone either, and afterwards she approaches Freddie so she can apologize in person. Freddie accepts her apology, and after they discuss how neither of them kissed anyone, they both kiss. This formed a group of fans who wanted them to get together instead of the show's main pairing up to that point in time. They called the pairing SETI, while the other pairing was known as Creddy. Through I Kiss, Sam and Freddie gained a bit more character depth, and viewers had a whole new reason to tune in. As the characters matured in the later seasons, I think the webcast started to become a bit awkward, as the main cast still had to act silly and goofy in a way that went against their growth. This, along with shifting audience preferences, were likely factors that led to the ratings decline iCarly faced after season 4. These issues are also present with many YouTubers who create content for younger audiences. They also affect all major Disney and Nickelodeon sitcoms. Eventually, the actors either grow out of their roles, they want to do different things, or ratings drop as the audience themselves grow out of the sitcom. The most successful live-action kid sitcoms aired for 3 to 4 seasons, but iCarly was an exception to the rule. It went on for 7. The love triangle between the main cast mitigated the slowdown to a degree. Despite the show declining in ratings after season 4, viewership went up among older viewers during the later seasons. The war was intense between these two ships, often filling up pages of debate on fan forums over which ship was better. It seemed like almost everyone who watched the show in the later seasons picked a side, and as a result, wanted to see which pairing would win out. The show never really ended on a conclusive answer, and to this day you'll still find some people arguing over which girl Freddie should have ended up with. It's this love triangle that helped electrify the show, making people tune in to special episodes where developments in those relationships happened. To summarize, iCarly's concept, humor, and love triangle were some of the primary reasons why it was so successful, and arguably the most successful live-action kids sitcom ever. Moving forward, it'll be tough for Nickelodeon or Disney to replicate the success found in shows like iCarly. Back in 2016, Disney even tried to copy the concept of iCarly with Bizarre Park. They even got one of the most famous YouTubers at the time to star in it, but Disney's attempt had middling ratings and was cancelled after 3 seasons. Cable in general has been in decline as upstarts like Netflix have changed the way consumers watch TV, and kids now have more options than ever, including social media, on-demand streaming services, and mobile games. This has naturally made it tougher for traditional networks to keep kids' attention. Since iCarly ended in 2012, Nickelodeon hasn't created any live-action shows with a similar level of success. In fact, in 2012, Disney Channel ended Nickelodeon's 17-year run as the highest-rated cable channel in the US. Even then, Disney Channel has also struggled to achieve the ratings it did in the late 2000s and early 2010s. With Nickelodeon partnering with Netflix and Disney Channel leveraging the Disney Plus platform, one of the two networks may eventually be able to produce something on the same level of popularity. But regardless, iCarly was truly something special. It was in many ways a time capsule to the infancy of video streaming and to kid culture back in the late 2000s. This made the show something that many of us who grew up in the generation would cherish long after the show ended.
And this has been
iCarly.
And we're clear.